What do concert tickets, driver's licenses, and transit cards all have in common? For lots of us, these items can all be found in the digital wallet on our smartphones. Every day in New York City, I see people tapping their phones to buy groceries, ride the subway, or pay for coffee. So, are virtual wallets on the way to replacing the classic billfold? And as a tech reporter, I cannot help but wonder, what are the risks of storing so much personal information in one place on our phones? Thankfully, Consumer Reports investigative reporter Lisa Gill spent months trying to answer those questions. She joined me to talk about her own digital wallet journey and how to keep your financial data as secure as possible. This is Terms of Service. I'm CNN tech reporter Claire Duffy. My conversation with Lisa after this short break. So, we are going to get into your reporting and your findings about how digital wallets work. But first, do you use a digital wallet on your phone?
Oh my gosh. I used to.
Okay,
I
before
used
you
to.
started this reporting?
Correct.
Interesting. Okay, well, I
Yeah.
am a paranoid tech reporter and have just never gone there because I'm freaked out. And so this is validating for me. But let's talk about why that is. But first, how would you explain what a digital wallet is to an everyday person? How does it work?
Anyone with a smartphone has probably seen the actual app is automatically loaded onto the phone. And essentially, it is a wallet. It holds all kinds of things like airline boarding passes, movie tickets, concert tickets, and your credit cards of all kinds, your debit cards, your regular credit cards. It even has a cash component where you can, like, it's almost like a Venmo, you can send
Hmm.
cash to one another. Um, I have seen there are at least 2 states, that are experimenting with putting your driver's license onto that digital wallet so that you don't always have to actually physically carry your wallet around. So it's got a lot of uses, and that those uses are expanding. And so it's one of the reasons we really wanted to take a look at what are these, how are they being used, and what are the upsides and downsides.
How are those basic wallet apps that are loaded onto your phone, like Apple Wallet or Google Wallet, different from finance apps like PayPal or Cash App or Venmo?
Yeah, so all of them have very good security protections, both on the phone and in the transaction as transactions are happening. That is great. That was like our top line news. Um, Most of them are monitoring for fraud, and so there's some interesting findings about that. And I would say the security component is like the most important part, where they are protecting those transactions and then protecting that information on the phone.
Hmm. How many people are using digital wallets in America right now?
Yeah, so we did a nationally representative survey about a year and a half ago asking that very question. It was at that time about 2/3 of folks said they had
Hmm.
tried it at least once, and about half were using it weekly. But I would say in the last year and a half, it's way more popular than that. And in fact, I think I would use the word it's ubiquitous. Everyone has probably tried it at least once. You might even be using a digital wallet and not even realize it, even if you're not using it for transactions.
Totally. Well, I feel like so often now there are service providers who want to be paid via Venmo. So, you kind of
Yes.
have to use Venmo or Cash App. Or if you're
Yeah.
going to a concert, Ticketmaster will say, put your ticket in your wallet in case you can't get the app to load when you get there. So, I feel like in many cases, it just sort of is a fact of life now that you have
Yeah.
to use these things.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the convenience factor. So
Hmm.
it's not uncommon, like you're holding a bunch of bags, maybe like even at a farmer's market or somewhere, retail shopping, you're holding a bunch of bags and trying to reach into your wallet, reach into a purse, grab, in my case, pull it all out, deal with all the credit cards, and then find the one debit card. Like when I can just grab the phone and just tap it, right? That convenience is amazing because most of my friends just basically walk around holding their phones. Like the phone is just
It's an
like,
appendage.
it's an appendage, right?
So these digital wallet payment apps, they are not banks, which in your reporting you point out means that they're subject to not all of the same regulations as
Right.
banks. What is different about these online services?
So of the 6 that we looked at, it's 3 and 3. So
Hmm.
Google Wallet, Samsung Wallet, and Apple Wallet tell you that they do not hold funds. They merely facilitate a transaction. And that your information is stored, like your account information, credit card information is stored on your phone, not with them. And that they encrypt it, send it over the transom, and then enable that transaction to happen. PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo actually do hold funds, and they, in my mind, act a lot more like a bank. And you can even, if you really want to, if you're holding a lot of funds in there, you can apply to get the same type of insurance, the FDIC insurance, on your funds that you would get in a bank.
That's interesting. You have to apply for it, unlike a
It is
bank
not
where that's just
automatic.
automatically there.
Right. So here, this is important. A lot of people use those 3 apps basically as a bank, and I understand that. The one bad thing there's 2 actually bad things about it. One is, of course, there is no insurance on those funds unless you apply. But if you're like receiving your paycheck, something very important every couple of weeks, and it's in the thousands of dollars, our advice is move it out of these apps into a proper bank account. It'll be far more protected in all kinds of ways, and it's just a better place to hold money. The other thing is, some of these accounts that have funds in them can be targets for fraud. And so I think it's just good advice. Like, the best practice is more than $100, move it out of those apps. Whereas Apple Wallet, Samsung Wallet, Google Wallet, like, there's no place to hold, funds in there.
We'll get more into the fraud piece here, but I should say PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo do use encryption to protect your account information, and they say they monitor accounts for unusual activity. On their website, they also offer tips for spotting common scams. Still, it's a good idea to set up 2-factor authentication if you're using these apps to prevent bad actors from accessing your accounts. So, you dug into these 6 wallet apps. How did you go about this research? Was it just a matter of using these in your everyday life?
Yeah. So thankfully, there's a team of people at Consumer Reports who are experts at this and have done a lot of work. What we do is we download the apps, we use them, and then we're monitoring the activity on them to see, is it sending out information that we can't tell? Is it receiving information that we didn't expect? We also download all the terms of service, all the usage contracts, any licensing contracts, everything, and pore over them in detail.
You mentioned the sort of top line good news that you discovered, which is that all of these platforms have pretty strong cybersecurity practices in terms of protecting people's financial information, securing those transactions. Were there other benefits that you uncovered in this reporting? We're going to get to the downsides, but I just want to ask if you found other benefits.
That was the main one I wanted to share. There were 2 other things. One is that they are also very upfront about any fees that are charged. And the other was that they were all pretty clear about how to get a hold of their customer service, which is pretty important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about some of the drawbacks that you found in this reporting.
Yeah. Or here's like a real bummer. All 6 of them, and this is in regards to fraud, we learned that if there is an unauthorized transaction on your account with them, and you report it typically within 30 to 60 days, each company is different, but it's 60 is about the max, and you report it, they will typically refund you the amount and they will investigate what happened. But the key word is unauthorized use. And that means that it's somebody that has found your number, your credit card number, and they have essentially stolen it and they've used it for something else. They've used it in a way that you did not give them permission to. So that was great news. That's terrific. The what is such a bummer is that if you are duped in a scam and somebody is like, oh, give me $100 for a gift card, and or you have a toll that's due, that's overdue, it's urgent that you pay it, and you go ahead and pay it, and it turns out to be a scam and they've stolen your number. Unfortunately, there is almost no recourse in any of these companies. I think it's still worth reporting it, and certainly reporting it to the bank, but they consider that authorized use. And this is something that Consumer Reports has really honed in on and really try to put a lot of pressure on banks and credit card companies and digital wallet companies to try to at least help consumers because the scams are so sophisticated. Um, we get training actually almost monthly on like all new scams that are coming out.
Right.
And so you have to be very, very careful for things that look like a bill or that seem overly urgent or that it seem like might be from someone that you know, but it was like kind of unexpected. So just be so careful.
Well, and scams aside, it feels like often on Venmo, and I imagine it's similar on some of these other platforms, it's like if you mistype somebody's handle who you're trying to send money to by one letter, you
Yes.
could end up sending $500
Yeah.
to the wrong person. And my impression is that there's not a ton that you can do about
There's
that,
nothing.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I interviewed a woman who accidentally, instead of $5 for honey at a farmer's market, no joke, sent $500,
Oh,
didn't
no.
realize it. She'd sent it to the right person, just was the wrong amount, and was able finally to track them down and retrieve, the $495 she didn't intend to send. Of course, there's some great tips there. Do a test, send like a $1, just to confirm you've got you're making the right connection. Also with Venmo, there is a QR code. This is personally what I use because the way it's like a lot less typing. And it's very easily findable to like either scan a code or present a code. And that way, then you've made the right connection. But yeah, you mistype it and it will be considered an authorized transaction. And if you make a mistake, there will be basically no recourse for you.
Coming up, what kinds of data could your digital wallet apps be collecting from you? And how can you make sure you're using these apps as securely as possible? That's after the break. You mentioned the concerns around data collection with these apps. What kinds of data do these apps collect from us that we might not realize?
Yeah, and almost in all cases, they are collecting every single transaction that you're making. In one of the cases, we found something very peculiar with PayPal. It was collecting your location data, and it's also collecting like other shopping information. So I presume if you're shopping on like Amazon or something, it can collect your preferences. And one of the things we point out is it could know your sizes. Which I really
That's crazy.
yeah. And so it could be all kinds of, it's all the data that's on the phone. A lot of times as part of the terms of service agreement, you wind up agreeing to sharing, your contacts and like all kinds of other use of that phone that you wouldn't even expect. And, coming back to the very important tip for any of these apps that you use, go to the settings of the app and turn off the sharing of those things. And that's really the most solid way around this problem.
PayPal does let users opt out of having the platform share personal information with third parties and merchants for what it calls personalized shopping experiences directly on the app, too. Another interesting thing that you point out in your reporting is unlike the tools that some banks have started to provide, when it comes to these digital wallets, it often can be trickier for people to track their spending. Will you tell us a little bit more about that and why you think that piece is so important?
Well, it's ideal, right? That if any like financial institution can like help you with budgeting, because it's really way too easy to take a phone, tap it to pay something and move on. It's just too easy. And what we can see is that people tend to overspend using these types of tools. And the overspending can lead to other problems. We have found that some consumers, if you have a reoccurring payment, let's say it's for your cell phone or for your cable bill, and you are withdrawing it from these apps, you're using the wallet as the mechanism to pay, don't do that. It's way better to use your bank and the banking information. And that way, and the reason is because sometimes your wallet access might be interrupted. And you might actually not even realize it. You might not get a notification. It could be interrupted overnight for maintenance reasons. And we have heard from consumers where a very important bill, like a car insurance bill or home insurance bill, did not go through because that wallet was down. And we know that that's not the case with the bank. And so we have really advised folks for your automated payments, put in your banking information. Do not use these wallets as like a mechanism to pay those things.
When you talk about like an Apple wallet or a Google wallet where you potentially have your credit card information stored and now maybe also your driver's license, like some really sensitive personal information, what happens if you lose that device?
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that you said this because we opened the investigation with this, that all of this is predicated on you having your phone in your hand. And, phones get bigger or smaller and like it's kind of easy to lose them or, even leave them in a bathroom or, in the car by accident. The most important thing is to turn on the location tracking information and the ability to essentially wipe the phone remotely if you accidentally lost that phone. Every phone is different, Apple's, versus non-Apple phones. And there's all sorts of videos online to show you how to do this. It takes like a few minutes, but that was one of the first things in my reporting that I did. I was like, oh wow, my phone, if I were to lose this, there's no way. It has authentication on it, like you have to put a code in, but I mean, after that, like a person, if they could figure it out, would have access to everything. And so being able to wipe the phones remotely is so important. It's not even funny. Way more important than just like simply losing your credit card, where you could just call the bank and like turn off.
Right. Yeah. That feels like such an important reminder for people.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy when I was sort of thinking about it, coming in today and I was like, everything is on this phone. And that leads us to another very set of important tips to help with fraud. Not only should you have authentication on the phone, but at the app level, so on my phone, if I were to click on like Apple Wallet, it's going to ask me again for another, and you can use you can do Face ID. I do codes. You'll set that code. It does not have to be the same code that is for your phone. In fact, I recommend that it not be. Then every time you do a transaction, you should set it so that it will force you to authenticate it one more time. And so it's like, I understand that you have to do it 3 times and you're standing there in line and you're like, or doing it like a face, but at least that way it will definitely protect you in case that phone is lost. And then this is just my own like dorky thing, but I discovered if you turn on notifications for every single time the wallet is used and every time, like, whether you pay something out of your bank account, I have 2 sets of notifications coming at me, and one would be from the wallet itself, whichever one it is, and then also from the bank. And that way I can see in case anything random shows up and I'm like, whoa, I did not make that purchase on Amazon or Target or Bed Bath & Beyond or wherever.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's annoying, and it's like, I know it's like, sounds like it's overkill, except that I've had my cards definitely hacked, and I'm like, wow, I was not at a CVS in Kansas City at any point. And a lot of times, you probably know this, but like, fraudsters are doing small transactions to see if you notice. And
right.
I noticed right away because I had the notification on. I could call the bank right away. And, the bank didn't think anything about it because it was a small dollar transaction. But when I flagged it for them, they're like, wow. And they shut it all down and, you get a new card.
Yeah. Well, and the extra passcode advice seems like such good advice. I know there was this trend, I guess you could call it, scam trend that was spreading on social media fairly recently, where people would be in a bar and, somebody comes up to you and says, can I get your number? Can I put my number in your phone? But then actually taking the phone and sending themselves money on Venmo. Yeah. So I think that, again, is like a protective factor that could work in so many different situations.
Yeah, it's so modern to say, don't share your phone with anybody. But like, that's the truth. And that is, that kind of scam, like it sounds so benign, like, oh yeah, hand me your phone, I'll type in my number. And then they can wind up doing all kinds of things really fast, actually, like resetting Face ID for them. And it's wild what they could do.
How have you seen digital wallets change the way that consumers are spending money now?
We did not investigate that. So anything I say is really my own conjecture, but it certainly makes it a lot easier to make a transaction. right? Like everything is tap and go. Everything, you're not digging around in a purse or a bag or a wallet trying to find your credit cards. And I think the convenience factor actually, and I wanted to look into this and I don't have a good reason to, but after this taping is like, do we have more transactions now than ever? I just think that we're just buying more small dollar things. And so I am guessing, given how many, I think some evidence for what we're talking about is that there are so many companies vying to get into this digital wallet space. It is an indicator that there's money to be made in here, whether it's through the transaction fees or it's the data brokering. There's probably multiple ways that a company can make money from it, but that would be my evidence that there's something there.
One thing that I'm sure many people have noticed that you also mentioned is that there are many businesses now that just won't let you pay in cash because most people either have a credit card or a phone where they can tap the digital wallet. But something I've been thinking about is like what happens for people who don't have access to that technology, or if you've left your phone at home but you have $5 in your pocket. Do you see more people just being left out because of this?
I think so. I think it's a terrible way to do an economy. It's like there's a lot of value still to paper money. And, this is a debate that rages in the halls of academia. I've interviewed folks and asking them like, well, what is digital money exactly? And I think you could do a whole podcast on that. And, what are we trading around exactly?
Right.
Like, is it like crypto? Is it just like made up
promises that there will be money somewhere sometime?
Yeah. I will say this. I mean, can you think of the last time you were in an airport and you could use cash?
Actually, I was just in an airport where their credit card machine went down and they just kind of said, well, everybody's SOL. Nobody can buy anything because this is the only system that we have, which is really silly.
There's no register. It's super weird.
Based on everything you found, what is the move here? Should we use these wallets? You said that you've stopped using these wallets. Why? What should we be doing about this?
I got creeped out. So I got creeped out on my phone. This is my personal experience. Let me just say this. When I got a new phone, it loaded up, it automatically loaded all this stuff. And then I got a new card because I like getting a new number all the time. And it loaded that up automatically. And I was like, oh, I didn't tell it to do that. And I was like, I don't like this. And I was just like, I think I need to put more steps in between my personal transactions. Otherwise, I'll just kind of go crazy. But I think the most important thing absolutely is to put the two-factor authentication at every step, phone, app, and transaction, to really make sure that nobody can get in there and wreak havoc with your bank account.
Are certain wallets or certain of these apps better than others? Like if somebody's making a choice about what to use?
I just think it's going to depend on what you need. But, I use Venmo, I use PayPal, I use these things still. And I just am very, very vigilant about making sure that I turn on all the notifications and I've got all the two-factor authentication set up so that there are no surprises.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much. This is really helpful, and we are really glad to have all of your advice about this very important topic.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for covering it.
Digital wallets can be a big convenience, and in many cases, it can be hard to avoid using them these days. Taking some simple steps can help you do so securely. Turning on notifications for your digital transactions is one of the easiest ways to track the money you're spending and look out for potentially fraudulent transactions. It's also worth reading up on what personal data these apps collect and opting out of data sharing when possible. Lisa recommends not holding large sums of money in your digital wallet, but if you're regularly getting large payments to one of these apps, it may be worth applying for FDIC insurance, which may not automatically apply in the way that it does for your regular bank accounts. All of the wallet apps we've talked about do have security protections in place, but those protections don't necessarily account for what happens if your phone is lost or stolen. Make sure you have Find My Phone and the ability to remotely erase data from your devices turned on. And Lisa advises setting up two-factor authentication to prevent bad actors from accessing your money without your permission. We'll link to Lisa's article in our show notes, where you can find specific steps to opt out of data you might not want to share with digital wallet companies. That's it for this week's episode of Terms of Service. I'm Claire Duffy. Talk to you next week.